So welcome to the video. Today we are going to take a look at how to do a Mann Whitney U test on version 31 of SPSS. So we're normally going to use this analysis when we have two groups or two conditions. So that's our independent variable, and when we have an ordinal or continuous dependent variable. So for this example, we are going to imagine that we're interested in the impact of two different recovery methods on how sore people feel after doing some sort of exercise. So in group A here, we have a number 1 to represent people who did cold water immersion after some sort of exercise, and we have a number 2 to represent people who did foam rolling after the same type of exercise. And then in column B, we have their soreness ratings. So a higher number in this column indicates a higher level of soreness. So the test is going to tell us, is there a significant difference between the two groups in terms of how sore the participants felt. So let's take a look at how to put these data into SPSS. So we'll go down to data view, and then in the name column, in the first row, we'll give a name to the independent variable. So let's call this something like treatment. And then in the cell below, we will give a name to the dependent variable. So we'll call this soreness. And then we'll go to this values column and to the treatment row, and we'll click on this box here and on this plus symbol, and we'll say that 1 equals cold water immersion. And then we'll click this plus button again, and we'll say that 2 equals foam rolling. Then we'll go to OK, and then we'll use this measures column to indicate that treatment is a nominal variable, which is sometimes referred to as a categorical variable, and we'll indicate that soreness is an ordinal variable. Next, we'll go down to data view, and we can see that treatment and soreness appear at the top of these two columns. So if we go back to this spreadsheet, we can select the top left piece of data, and then while holding shift, I'll click the bottom right piece of data. Then I'll go to Command or Control C to copy those data. Then I'll go to the top left cell in SPSS, and I'll go to Command or Control V to paste those data in. Sometimes that won't work for some reason, in which case you can just go to Edit and then Paste, which should do the trick. And you'll notice that in this column here, we have cold water immersion and foam rolling rather than just 1 and 2 like we did in the spreadsheet. And that's of course because we allocated these descriptions to the numbers 1 and 2, but also because in the view menu, we have value label selected. If you unselect it, you just have 1 and 2. I tend to keep it selected. So once we have the data in, we're ready to run the analysis. So we can go out to Analyze and then down to Non-Parametric Tests, then over to Legacy Dialogues, then over to 2 Independent Samples. And we can see that we have Mann Whitney U already selected here. So we're just going to move the independent variable to the grouping variable box and the dependent variable to the test variable list box. Then we'll click on the IV and then on Define Groups. And because we used 1 and 2 to refer to these two different types of treatment, we're going to enter 1 and 2 into these two boxes. Then we'll go to Continue and then to OK. So that runs the Mann Whitney U test for us, but I'm just going to show you how to generate medians as well. So we'll go up to Analyze and then down to Compare Means and Proportions, then over to Means. Then we'll transfer our IV to the independent list and our DV to the dependent list. Then we'll click on Options. And median is already selected here, so I'm just going to move it to the right using this arrow. And then I'll select these statistics that we don't need, and I'll remove them from this box by clicking this arrow again to move them over here. Then I'll go to Continue and then to OK. And if we look at this report table that has just been created, we can see that soreness ratings had a median of 5 in the foam rolling condition, and we had a median of 3 in the cold water immersion condition. So it looks like soreness ratings were lower in this condition compared to this condition. However, based on this, we don't yet know whether that difference was statistically significant. And in order to determine that, we have to look at this test statistics table and at this asymp sig two-tailed row, where we can see that we have a value of less than 0.001. And as this is less than 0.05, we can conclude that there was a significant difference between those conditions with respect to soreness. So that's essentially how we run and interpret the Mann Whitney U test. But let's now take a look at how we can report those results. So I have this example here, and I've said that a Mann Whitney U test revealed that soreness ratings were significantly higher in the foam rolling condition than in the cold water exposure condition. And I've reported medians and N values each time I've referred to one of those conditions. So here are the values for the foam rolling condition. and the median is 5. So as we saw before, if we look at this report table, we can see that we have a median of 5 in the foam rolling row. And if we go to this ranks table, we can see that we have an N value of 10 in this foam rolling row. So 10 is just the number of participants in that condition. And then I've just reported the same statistics for the cold water exposure condition. Next, I've reported this U value of 3, and that's coming from this test statistics table and from this Mann, Whitney U row, where we have a value of 3. We also have a Z value of negative 3.64. That's coming from the same table, but from the Z row, where I've just rounded this value here to 2 decimal places. And we have a p-value, as we saw before, of less than 0.001, and that's coming from this asimp sig two-tailed row. Finally, we have an R value of 0.81. So the R value is an effect size statistic, and SPSS doesn't actually provide this for us, so we have to calculate it ourselves. And to do that, we have to take the Z value and we remove any minus symbol that might be in front of it, and we divide that number by the square root of the total number of observations. So in this case, we had 10 people in the foam rolling condition and 10 people in the cold water exposure condition. So we had 20 observations in total. So if we take these numbers and we can put them into Google, so here we have the Z number, and then we're dividing that by the square root of the total number of observations. And Google has informed me that that value is 0.81 if we round that to 2 decimal places, and that's what I've reported at the end of this paragraph here. And I've said that that effect size was large, and that was based on these criteria that Cohen put forward in 1988. He said that an R value above 0.1 can be described as small, an R value above 0.3 can be described as moderate, and an R value above 0.5 can be described as large. So we have an R value of 0.81, and as that is larger than 0.5, we have described that effect size as large. So that's about it for the Mann, Whitney U test on version 31 of SPSS. I hope that was helpful. If you have any questions, just let me know in the comments and I'll try to get back to you. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.